Well, you heard yourself off the top there saying that your constituents say the Prime Minister needs to go, that the problem isn't the party, it's the leader. Why did you feel it was important to go on the record about this right now?
Well, because I'm supposed to convey the messages that constituents give me.
Boy, oh boy, do we have a lot to cover today. Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. For today's video, we're going to be going over a few different clips, videos, some news articles, and I wanted to start off with none other than Doug Ford calling out Jagmeet Singh and basically saying he does not have the balls to call an early election.
Good morning, Premier. Mark McAllister from City News.
Hey, Mark, how you doing?
Good, thank you.
Good.
How might the federal NDP decision to reverse its backing for the Liberals at this point impact your decision on a possible early election?
Well, as far as I'm concerned, MP Singh he's just blowing smoke. There's nothing more important to these greedy politicians than collecting a pension. And he was elected in October 2019 and October 19th, 2019. And I'll be floored, and I'll stand up here and apologize to all the greedy politicians if he calls the election early. But let's face it, he wants his pension. He's not going anywhere until October, let's say 20th, 2025, because there's him and a whole bunch of other politicians that want to grab the taxpayers' money. So my bet is he's not doing anything. He's just putting on a big show like he has for the last number of years there.
Now, love him or hate him, and I'm not a huge fan of Doug Ford, but there are times where this guy just comes out, says some of the wildest, funniest things, and he's definitely right on this about the pension. We all know that. But I think one thing he may be getting wrong is I believe that Jagmeet's actually eligible as of February of 2025, which is why a lot of people are speculating that he won't do anything until April of 2025, which is when the Liberals are going to put forward their next budget. I'm sure Pierre is going to be trying beforehand. However, it seems like we now have new players in the game since the NDP has pulled out, as this article just came out today saying Bloc Quebecois ready to extract gains for Quebec in exchange for supporting the Liberals. And if we zoom in a little bit on the article itself, it says the Bloc Quebecois says it's ready to wheel and deal with Prime Minister Justin Trudeau's party to support during confidence votes now that the Liberal government's confidence and supply agreement with the NDP has ended. The Bloc's party leader, Blanchette, has already drawn up a list of demands, and he's called the situation a window of opportunity now that the Liberals are truly a minority government. NDP leader Jagmeet Singh's decision to back out of the confidence and supply deal last week leaves the Bloc with an opening, the party says, while Pierre Poilievre's Conservatives have promised multiple confidence votes in the hope of triggering a general election. The Bloc's strategy is not to rush into one and instead use their newfound standing to make what they consider to be gains for Quebec. And he was actually questioned about this today during one of his press conferences, where he chose not to answer the question about his list of demands. I think he said he'll hold on to them until the next day when he might release them. But then a follow-up question was, how does it now feel to have this so-called power? And just look at his response to this.
What are you looking for in terms of gains? What are you looking for in terms of gains for Quebec?
Please let me keep something for tomorrow.
But how do you feel about getting all of this additional power?
Good.
Thank you.
Now, some could see his answer and just say he was being tongue-in-cheek. Maybe he was basking in the question or thinking about it now in a different light. However, essentially we have a federal party of an individual province holding the country hostage in terms of an election. And even if we look at the federal projections, majority of the country is looking like it wants a change into conservative. And when we look at the federal projections or electoral projections, again, majority of the country, 42% according to this, want a change in the government. But now, essentially, this one individual, Blanchette, it could potentially be keeping the Liberals in party so that this one province of Quebec could get whatever demands that they have. And to me, this makes no sense because I'm pretty sure there's not enough time in terms of maybe introducing bills or legislation that Quebec could do, or the Bloc could implement. But again, you don't have to take my word for it or these maps or anything like that. Even Liberal MPs, as you saw from the opening clip, that was a Liberal MP from Quebec talking about how her constituents aren't happy and say that there needs to be a change.
We're joined by Alexandra Mendez. She's an MP from Quebec, one of the many MPs that's gathered here. Thank you very much for joining us. I know you have said that you spoke to a number of constituents during the summer, and they were talking about Prime Minister Justin Trudeau's leadership. Tell me what you've been hearing.
Mostly that people think he should go. That's bottom line the message that I heard throughout the summer, and really a considerable number of people. It wasn't just meetings, the writing office of 1, 2, 3 people. It was a considerable number of people that reached out and told me that. At Canada Day, it was very, very generalized. And then in August in St. Lambert, it was again, I had 3 days of a booth in a street festival, and that's all I heard.
The overwhelming message.
Overwhelming message.
Now, I'm going to give credit where credit is due, and kudos for her to actually voicing her constituents and how they feel about the whole situation. However, when she was questioned on like what is it exactly that they have a problem with, she said she couldn't really come up with an answer. They didn't really tell her. It may just be leadership fatigue, which we all have definitely felt that as well. And then she was questioned on what she thought, and she still supports Trudeau for some reason. And when the reporter pushed back on, like, why even bring this up then? If you do support him, why say that your constituents don't support him? She basically says, well, this is not news, and it shouldn't be news to Trudeau. Just look at the past year and the results of that.
It's really all about the leadership, but without pinpointing a specific reason of saying, he did this or he did that we didn't like. It's more the general feeling about maybe leader fatigue. I don't know.
Right.
I honestly can't say what it is.
What about you? What do you feel about the Prime Minister and whether or not he should continue as leader?
No, I believe he is the right leader for the party. He has an incredible job in transforming this party and making us a very grassroots, if you want, oriented party, which is why I'm confident about talking about my constituents, because that's what I'm supposed to do. I'm supposed to be their voice.
Understood, but now you understand the conversation that's been started, or that continues really, is that you are saying you believe that he should be the leader, but by speaking out, you are possibly causing a bit of more conversation here at caucus.
But I'm pretty sure that the leader is not obvious to that. I'm sure the Prime Minister has heard the same things that I'm saying right now. This is not news. It has been, I'd say, increasing, if you want, for the past year. The polls are saying it. It's been pretty generalized. I'm not saying anything new. This is not a scoop.
Now, as the saying goes, a broken clock is right twice a day. She's correct. This is not a scoop. Trudeau should know all this by now. The polls, the people constantly yelling at him at what a bad job he's doing, a lot of his cabinet either not running again or saying that they need a change. More recently, his campaign manager quitting on him, saying that he knows that he's not going to be able to win. And just all the other reports and the numbers that come out on the status of Canada, this government has been a huge failure. For example, take the Bank of Canada, who just made another announcement of this 0.25% drop. Listen to what he's talking about, how the biggest increase in spending in Canada has been government.
So let me expand on what we're seeing in the economy and how that played into our deliberations. In the second quarter, the economy grew by 2.1%, led by government spending and business investment. But shelter price inflation is still too high. It remains the biggest contributor to overall inflation, despite some early signs of easing. And second, as inflation gets closer to the target, we want to see economic growth pick up to absorb the slack in the economy so inflation returns sustainably to the 2% target. Inflation continues to reflect the push and pull of opposing forces. Overall weakness in the economy continues to pull inflation down, but price pressures in shelter and some other services are holding inflation up. The unemployment rate has risen over the last year to 6.4% in June and July. The rise is concentrated in youth and newcomers to Canada who are finding it more difficult to get a job.
Now, he made this announcement last Wednesday on September 4th. Not even 2 days later, this story comes out about the numbers now increasing in terms of unemployment on September 6th.
A growing number of people in this country are unable to find work, with unemployment numbers now reaching levels we've not seen in years. The national unemployment rate was 6.6% in August, up from 6.4% in July. CTV's Adrian Gobriel has more.
The number of people searching for a job in Canada is on the rise.
Please contact his employer.
It's a reality that employment coach Selena Manzano is faced with every day at this publicly funded job center.
It's gone up 100%.
The people coming to see you are getting older as well.
We're getting a lot of clients that are retired. They're 70 years old or plus, and they're looking for part-time because they cannot live off their pension.
The summer job market also presented serious challenges for students, with their unemployment rate rising to the highest level since the summer of 2012.
The bottom line is there's tens and thousands of more people who are looking for work that cannot find it.
Canada added 22,000 jobs in August, though the country's population grew by more than 240,000 in the first quarter of this year.
When you couple that with the explosive population growth that we're dealing with, it just doesn't cut it.
There is a lot of employers that are going to be there.
New Canadian Amaranath Adavana has been searching for a job in healthcare since he arrived in Canada 12 months ago.
I don't know if it's because of my international background or it's just because it's just too tight, like the job market is too tight. It's tough.
While the average is sitting at 6.6%, the levels of unemployment fluctuates depending on where you live in the country. British Columbia is at 5.8, Alberta 7.7, Saskatchewan 5.4, Manitoba 5.8, Ontario 7.1, Quebec 5.7, with Newfoundland and Labrador leading the Atlantic provinces at 10.4%.
And after hearing all those numbers and seeing the demographic of Canada, it's mind-blowing that anyone would say that we need to keep the Liberals in power after 9 years of this. In 2024, that's the state of our economy and our country. I'm sure Trudeau somehow is going to blame Harper for that. And as a Canadian, this is what frustrated me with the most recent interview of Vashti and Andrew Scheer. Now, I know she's probably doing her due diligence as a journalist to ask both sides or ask these types of questions. But when Andrew Scheer is explaining to her that Jagmeet Singh is just pulling a stunt, he's going to continue supporting the Liberals no matter what he's saying here, she pushes back with this question.
But I asked him those questions as well, and I take your point that the answer is not necessarily clear, but what I did garner from it was, my impression is that he and his party are more worried about the prospect of your government forming your party, forming government than they are about the Liberals remaining in government. And the point that they put forward over and over again is that the consequences of your party forming government would be so dire that they have to kind of take it on a case-by-case basis moving forward. Doesn't that make sense?
Actually, no, it doesn't make sense, because if it was such a dire situation as Jagmeet tries to make it sound, well, then pulling out of the confidence agreement makes absolutely no sense. That actually just props up the Conservatives to potentially pull an earlier election, meaning your fears would come true faster. But all that aside, if we stick with the status quo of the government that we've had for the past 9 years, how would Canadians be better off versus having a Conservative government? As you just heard from the Governor of Bank of Canada, the vast majority of people are spending their money on housing and groceries. They're not contributing to the economy. They're not buying clothing. They're not buying furniture. If they have a job, they're paying majority of it to housing, groceries, and that's it. And that's if they have a job. And when Andrew Scheer pushes back saying that these are the things that Jagmeet supports is people suffering, Vashti follows up with this question when she definitely knows the answer to it.
He's saying he's okay with housing prices continuing to climb. He's okay with the plan to quadruple the carbon tax. So again, I go back to what is really going to be different this fall if Singh can't commit to actually giving that choice to Canadians.
I'm not sure that's exactly what he's saying. I think he's saying that he has concerns about all that stuff, but he's more worried about what the country would look like if your party forms government. And the basis of his argument, much like the Liberals, is they have accused your party of essentially being willing to take away programs that they have put in place, like dental care, like childcare, like the Canada Child Benefit, and a host of others. The reason they have made that accusation is because your party has not clarified what it would do. Isn't it reasonable of Canadians, when you are, as you have in the last few minutes, describing how terrible you view the country to be in a state of, isn't it reasonable of Canadians to ask of you how you're going to fix it?
Now, I like Vashi and I like the way she conducts her interviews, but when she said that the way that he views the country, it's not the way Andrew Scheer views the country, it's the way Canadians view the country. Our immigration is out of control. We don't have enough housing. 1 out of 4 people are in poverty. 1 out of 4 people are going to food banks. As you just saw, the unemployment rate is rising. Fewer and fewer people are able to even afford anything in this country. Like, the numbers are widespread across Canada. This is not Andrew Scheer or a conservative view on the situation. This is what's being reported, and she obviously knows this because she's the one who reports on some of this stuff. But to answer her question, no, it doesn't make sense right now, because why would they give up any of their potential plans in order to get the country back into a better spot? The Liberals love to steal their ideas. The NDP could potentially run on some of those ideas as well. So yeah, I'm sure he's going to lay out a plan as they get closer to an election. But right now, it would make no sense to actually talk about those things outside of their vague slogans of axing the tax and building the homes, that kind of stuff. And when Andrew Scheer emphasizes that this didn't just happen to Canada, this is because of the Liberal NDP coalition and the Liberals being in government, Vashi comes back with this.
Respectfully, Mr. Scheer, he's looking at the same polls you and I are, which show that your party would form government. And the conclusion he's arrived at is it might be better to support the Liberals and keep them in power than have your party be in power. And with all due respect, you didn't answer the question about the accusation that the Liberals and NDP have leveled at you, which is fair in many respects, that you would erase a lot of key programs that have been put on the table for Canadians, because you have also made a promise to bring the budget back into balance at some point, to eliminate a $40 billion deficit. You have not specifically outlined what you would do. I know you keep saying you're going to do that closer to a campaign, but if you want to go to an election tomorrow, don't Canadians deserve to know tonight?
Yes, but there won't be an election today, tomorrow, next week, or the week after, or even a month after. So kind of a moot point, but let's continue.
Well, Canadians absolutely deserve to know a political party's platform before they vote, and that is what will happen. But, you know, the NDP do this all the time. Canadians are forced to cut back every time they put, a roast beef back on the grocery shelf, every time they skip a meal, every time they turn the thermostat down. Canadians are making cutbacks in their lives because of government-caused inflation and high interest rates. So more of the same from Singh and Trudeau will just cause more austerity for Canadian families, more cuts to Canadians' quality of life and standard of living. And we're seeing this in more and more data that's been coming out this summer. We're falling further and further behind the United States. More and more Canadians saying they're going to have to move out of their homes because they can't afford their mortgage. And let's look at where Singh and Trudeau want to keep spending. We've identified lots of waste and mismanagement. The NDP and Liberals will always want you to believe some kind of doom and gloom if any kind of fiscal responsibility is applied to government. They're okay with Canadians cutting back as long as government gets bigger and more bloated. There's a $35 billion infrastructure bank that hasn't completed a single project. Hundreds of millions of dollars have been funneled to high-priced consultants like the McKinsey company, sole source contracts going to liberal-friendly corporations. Those are lots of low-hanging fruit.
But you know as well as I do, Mr.
We're going to eliminate that waste and corruption. That's how...
Yeah, pardon the interruption. You know as well as I do. You read the budget very closely. The big line items that impact the overall deficit are things like dental care at $4.4 billion, the Canada Child Benefit at $25 billion, child care at $8 billion. You cannot simply eliminate the deficit by getting rid of a $60 million ArriveCan app or all the hundreds of millions of dollars that are spent on consultants. That will eliminate one-time costs, sure. It will not eliminate those big line items. And it also doesn't answer the question that the that your opposition has put on the table for Canadians, which is this next election will be a choice between removing the programs they've come to rely on and keeping them.
Well, you know, a way to potentially keep all these programs that the Liberals and the NDP want to implement is getting rid of the government and how big it actually is. As Pierre's said multiple times, we need a small government. And if you look at some of these articles, the Globe and Mail came out with this, what was it, January, and updated this of February of this year. Size of the federal public service swells to record high, according to a report. More recently, the National Post, this was in July, federal government hired more than 10,000 new public servants last year to reach a record high. States numbers posted by the Treasury Board puts the current population of the federal public service at 367,772 employees, a 10,525 increase from the last year. The federal government added more than 10,000 employees to the federal public service last year, swelling Ottawa's bureaucracy to record levels. 42% increase since 2015 when the Liberals got into power. So maybe they might want to look at getting rid of some of that, which potentially could save quite a lot of money, just like the president of Argentina decided to do when he got into power.
Bueno, lo primero que tenemos que entender es que el Estado no es la solución, el Estado es el problema. Ustedes, si se fijan acá, tienen la gran raviolada que es el Estado, el gran curro y la fuente de la decadencia argentina, que es el Estado. Esta es la foto del Estado que tenemos hoy. Si nos movemos hacia aquella pizarra, Ministerio de Turismo y Deporte, afuera. Ministerio de Cultura, afuera. Ministerio de Ambiente y Desarrollo Sostenible, afuera. Vamos a seguir por acá. Ministerio de Ciencia y Tecnología e Innovación, algo bien del sector privado. Nada bueno salió del sector público, afuera. Ministerio de Trabajo, Empleo y Seguridad Social, afuera. Ministerio de Educación, adoctrinamiento, afuera. Ministerio de Transporte, afuera. Ministerio de Salud, afuera. Ministerio de Desarrollo Social, afuera. ¿Cómo queda el Estado? Ministerio de Capital Humano, Ministerio de Infraestructura, Ministerio de Economía, Ministerio de Justicia, Ministerio de Seguridad, Ministerio de Defensa, Ministerio de Relaciones Exteriores y Ministerio del Interior. Se acabó el curro de la política.
But hey, as always, this is just my opinion. I'd love to hear from you guys. Let me know what you thought about all this crazy situations in the comments below. And as always, I will catch you guys on the next one. Thanks so much.